did you?
A good friend of ours who is returning and out of the hospital. Of course, I'm talking about Rob Kirby. Rob Kirby joining us from Toronto at KirbyAnalytics.com. You are a macroeconomic analyst, expert in gold. Rob Kirby, let's get this out of the way. First of all, you look fantastic, dude. Looks like you lost a little weight, but you were in intensive care for a month. We were all praying for you out here in USA Watchdog land and everywhere else. How do you feel now? How are you doing?
Greg, I feel immeasurably better today than when I entered the hospital in late January. I got home on Monday. I spent 5 weeks in the hospital, 4 weeks in intensive care. I've dropped about 40 pounds. And to be honest with you, I'm feeling amazing relative to where I was just a few short days ago. I'm happy and thankful and blessed to be alive. And I thank everybody who wished me well during my ordeal. But I'm back on the horse, and here we go.
Oh, man, we were very worried about you, man. I mean, a month in intensive care is all you have to say is that. And we're really happy, and prayers work, so we're really happy. I wanted to start out with this $21 trillion, which is the biggest financial story we've ever had, according to Dr. Mark Skidmore at Michigan State University, an economics professor, expert in public records. Also, Katharine Fitz also added greatly to this whole story and what it meant. He discovered Skidmore back in late 2017, this $21 trillion of missing money at DOD and HUD, and then it became a national security issue. And because they didn't say it was phony, they didn't say it was fake. They just went, oh yeah, we're going to change the rules. FASAB, FASB, not FASB, FASB 56, and it's a national security issue. Is what the government's response to that after the DOD failed an audit right after he was on my program disclosing all this. So I just want to kind of bring people up to speed there. And one of the things that you had said to me, which really stuck with me, is that, for years, everybody got this wrong. Everybody got this wrong. And it was because nobody in their wildest dreams could wrap their head around the fact that the government would print so much money that it was just unbelievable amounts of money that was printed. That's $21 trillion, what we know of. Now we'll fast forward to today. And you had long said, and were laughed at back in 08 and 09 when this thing first, this QE deal, money printing deal first started. You said, the money's got to go vertical. And everybody went, oh, come on, man. Come on. And of course, all the while they were doing this, his work stopped in 2015, long before Donald Trump got elected, incidentally. So, but anyway, you wanted me to print this up.
Yep.
This is a chart. Do I have it right? No, I have it upside down. Here we go. You wanted me to print this up. Let's go with this chart. This is from Chris Martenson. Here's where we were. And go ahead, you explain what's going on here.
I want to explain to everybody the importance of this chart. This chart was created by a guy who you have interviewed before, Greg, I'm sure. His name is Chris Martenson. And this chart is a very, very key piece in a body of work that Chris created in 2009, early 2009, in the aftermath of the financial crisis. And the body of work is known as the Crash Course. Anybody can Google Chris Martenson and the Crash Course and bring this body of work up. And I implore everybody who's listening to spend the time to actually listen to. It's an audio-visual series that Chris did called the Crash Course. I advise everyone to watch it. But what Chris was showing, Chris is a very, very smart guy, and he understands macroeconomics very well, and he understands money systems very well. And what this graph depicts, Greg, specifically is the life cycle of any fiat money currency with compound interest. And of course, the US dollar is a fiat money system with compound interest. And the real important takeaway is that regardless of what the actual interest rate is that with a fiat monetary system with compound interest, in its growth cycle, you reach an inflection point where monetary growth mathematically has to grow vertically. And we have had vertical monetary growth now for a very long time. Most people have been unaware that we've been having vertical monetary growth because it's been hidden from us. And it's been hidden from us because the dollars that are being created have basically amounted to what I call dark money or dark dollars. They're being hidden in enclaves like the Exchange Stabilization Fund and other bailiwicks where the powers that be can manage to stuff the money. And the reason we know this to be a fact now is because of the work of Dr. Mark Skidmore and Katharine Fitz, because they've gone in and really crunched the government numbers. And they know that the government, or through the government books, specifically the Department of Defense and HUD, they know that at least $21 trillion went through their books that can't be accounted for. This is part of that money that I spoke of, or that Chris identified, how the money had to grow vertically. Indeed, it has been growing vertically. We've been unaware because the Skidmore Fitz work covers a period of 1999 up to 2015. And over that period of time is when this 21 trillion was created. And this is part of this vertical monetary growth, which I remember speaking to Katharine Fitz back in 2008 after the first iteration of QE from the Fed. I remember communicating with Katharine, and I said to her directly, I said, this means categorically that money growth has to go vertical now. And I don't even really remember whether she was on side or off side with that proclamation when I said it. But then, sure enough, it was only really a few months later that Chris Martenson put out this crash course where he was actually predicting or identifying what was already occurring but was unknown to most everybody, because most people, Greg, simply cannot get their heads around the idea that our political masters and the powers that be would create such a hideous amount of money and hide it from us. But you see, the reality is the keepers of our financial system, who model everything, by the way, they have been well aware that they were facing this conundrum or this dilemma for many years, because they understand the growth or the life cycle of fiat monetary systems, just like we're discussing now. They've been aware of this for years. It's just that they've been creating this money covertly and keeping it off book. And this is why, Greg, we have instances like the creation of or why the powers that be are so willing, for instance, to engage in wars on terror and wars in Afghanistan and in the Middle East, where $6 trillion has been thrown down the drain in the last dozen plus years, fighting basically, I want to say an enemy that we can't even really seem to catch. We can't defeat them, and yet $6 trillion's been thrown at this. If money was really as dear as money's supposed to be, $6 trillion would have never been allowed to have been spent in such a pursuit. And the reason that $6 trillion is allowed to be spent, Greg, is because the people that are ultimately in control of the finances realize that they have tens of trillions hiding in dark places that they can muster up and marshal up to basically engage in any pet project they want to at any time. So this is why they can act so. I don't know. This is why they have the nerve they have, and this is why they act like with impunity and act all powerful. It's because of this money, this money they've created, which is, I mean, and it has been created and it is there, and I mean we now have the evidence that the money's been created, And we know what they've been using the money for. They've been using the money to engage in things like war on terror. They've been using it to prop up the U.S. government bond market because, like, ladies and gentlemen, foreigners have not been buying U.S. government bonds now for the past 3 or 4 years. Who's taken the place of foreigners buying U.S. government bonds? This dark money has been utilized so that the U.S. government or the U.S. powers that be can monetize their own debt. This has been going on in spades. This is what props up and keeps the dollar looking strong relative to other currencies in the world. This money has also been used as a resource to suppress the price of metal with the endless selling of paper contracts of both gold and silver. This has been used to inflate and prop up the stock market, where we've seen the likes of national banks around the world directly engaging in purchasing equities in stock markets around the world. But I mean, this is a complete and utter menace. And the reality is, Greg, the rest of the world, particularly now that Katharine Fitz and Dr. Mark Skidmore's work is gaining some traction in the world, the rest of the world, as in national governments around the world, they've become all too aware of the shenanigans that have gone on and the poor stewardship that's been illustrated by the keepers of the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. This is what's at the root of all of our international economic tensions. This is what's really at the root of the difficulties and differences in thinking between the American regime and the Chinese regime and the Russian regime, because these people are aware of what's transpired now, and they are not going to tolerate what's been done in the name of keeping the U.S. dollar propped up as the world's reserve currency, and the shenanigans and the criminality that's been involved in doing so. So that's sort of it in a nutshell. And if you don't think I've explained myself fully, Greg, maybe we can delve off into some finer points on what I've just laid out.
Okay, Rob. So last week, the markets are jittery. The stock market in the U.S. is selling off. China, they're worried about global growth. Mario Draghi is throwing in the towel. He's going to have more 0% interest rates and easing. What is your appraisal of what's going on right now? Just by the look of the economic picture, what do you think is going on right now?
Well, I think that the global economy is headed for a slowdown, possibly a recession, and central banks around the world, including the BIS, the Bank for International Settlements, and the OECD, they're all revising their prospects for economic growth down now for this year and next year. And I think what's really occurring, Greg, is the world's coming to grips with just how broken our financial system really is. Like, people have been operating in a state of disbelief that the system was as broken as it is, and there is an awakening that is now happening. And someone who's near and dear to both you and I, Katharine Fitz, I think you want to talk about a great barometer as to where we're headed and to how quickly we may be headed there, is that for many years Katharine Fitz has referred to the malaise in our global financial situation. She's referred to it as you well know, as a slow burn, and that the system was not functioning properly or the way it should if markets were free and fair, but it was grinding down or burning or smoldering at a very slow, gradual rate.
She was right. She was right.
Because, Greg, and what her being correct really embodies to me more than anything is that it embodies the notion that nobody could really come to grips with the totality and the enormity of the criminality that was actually present in our system. And now that the evidence has come to light and people are realizing the gravity of what has been done and the true state of affairs, people's opinions and people's forecasts going forward are now beginning to change. And I view Katharine Fitz, who has now really, I believe, very recently changed her tune quite a bit, in that the slow burn is probably not in the cards anymore, and we're very likely to see very significant change in the very near term going forward. I'm in that camp. I believe that the rest of the world is not going to put up with what's being done. Period. What has happened in the name of preserving the dollar as the world's reserve currency? What has been done, it amounts to, it's beyond crimes against humanity. It is so insidious, and the rest of the world isn't going to tolerate it, Greg.
I mean, Rob, this is the biggest financial fraud in the history of the planet, at least going back to the flood. This is an unbelievable deal. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, because we talked about this in the pre-interview, the BIS, BIS Basel III agreement, where they're going to make gold a 100% tier 1 no risk asset. Right along with bonds. Isn't that a signal? It's on April 1st. Isn't that a signal that, hey, you're not shorting my asset into the dirt? Hey, whoa, we're going to enforce the law now. Well, you're not taking my 100% asset here that are keeping me afloat and giving me a 20% haircut by dumping a bunch of naked shorts and a bunch of fake gold you don't have onto the market. You don't do that. No. I mean, isn't that what the day we're coming to, and also about demands for gold? Can we talk about the gold market? Because you always said that this all ends the day China doesn't get its gold.
Pretty much, Greg.
But let's go back to the BIS. Tier 1 asset, April 1st. Is that a big, date there? Is that a big, thing happening with?
It's potentially a very, very, very big date, Greg. But the real reality is we're starting to see signs of admission that things are not as we were told they were. And the reason we're starting to see these admissions, Greg, is because the system is critically broken and can't be put. It's like Humpty Dumpty who fell off the wall. They can't put the pieces back together again. And I mean, people like the BIS, they're going to have to come somewhat clean with what truly has transpired, or they're going to be hung. Because the reality of what has transpired is coming to light, whether people want to hear it or not. This is a reality now. Okay?
And the gold price? What happens to the gold price?
Well, the gold will look after itself, Greg. The price of gold will revalue itself once the carnage and the pieces are all on the ground and people realize globally the true enormity of the crimes that have been committed and what has been done. The price of gold will revalue. And it will, obviously in nominal terms, it will revalue to a much dramatically higher price than what we've been accustomed to. And that's coming whether we like it or not. But it's not just gold. All tangibles that have utility, Greg, will revalue upward. And for people who believe, by the way, that interest rates or cap rates, as they're referred to, if people believe that as we're forced into a reset where money and capital are valued much differently than they have been for the past generation, and this could occur very swiftly, by the way. But if people think that cap rates and interest rates are going to remain at zero, think again, because I'll just tell you something, Greg. Nobody's going to part with the with their hard-earned or the fruits of their labor for nothing forever. And we've been forced by a bunch of Keynesian crazy men who've been in control of our system for a very long period of time that this was somehow okay. But let me tell you, in the real world, it's not okay. In the real world, Greg, when you drop a plate, it falls to the ground. It doesn't fall up. And you know what? We've been tricked through monetary methadone to believe otherwise. And this is not reality, and it won't stand. And we are due for some very, very serious change. And how quickly we could get this change, I think, could gobsmack and surprise most everybody, me included.
I was surprised at this, how they suppressed the metals. I mean, on Friday it was up pretty high. Silver was up. I mean, silver's like at mining cost. I mean, you're an expert on precious metals. You're an expert on movement around the globe. There's only a few people that do this. I think your partners, your business partner is one of them. I believe he's said in the past he's in Dubai. What are your contacts? You have tons of contacts all over the world, Europe, North America, China. What are your contacts saying about the buying of gold, the big money, the people that, yeah, that's nice you have 1,000 ounces of gold, but I need tons. What are they saying?
Very quickly, we're getting to a point where it doesn't matter how much money you have. Physical metal is getting very hard to acquire. So
anywhere. You said that last time you were on, you said, North America, you could still get it, but that was tightening. Is that closed? That window now closed? Can you get money from gold from your sources in Canada or wherever?
I wouldn't say it's closed yet, but I'll tell you the windows into the world of physical precious metal are lowering, and the openings are getting extremely narrow and extremely tight, and physical metal is becoming extremely hard to source in quantity. And I'll tell you what, if relating back to our previous discussion about how much money has really been created in the world, ultimately at the end of this, as this window closes, and as the revelations as to how much money has really been created becomes much, much wider known, I expect there to be a mad rush and dash to gather the last remaining scraps of physical metal that are available at some point in the very near future, and we could see something like a real Roman candle in the price of gold. We could see the price do things that we could have never ever imagined in the very near future. I'm anticipating that this will occur. Anyway, but at the end of the day, Greg, what I do know is that we are ultimately headed for we're headed for a very, very, very serious round of inflation, probably a hyperinflation. It's coming to the West. We will live to experience it, and this is now built into the cake. And you know what? If you do own some physical precious metal, and I hope most people do who have investable assets, I think you hold it. And if you don't, you might want to think about trying to acquire some now. And if you have extra investable income, you might want to think about adding. So that's my view. That's where my head's at, and I do believe that this will serve most people well.
If they're scrambling for this gold around the world, who is selling it, and why are they selling it around the world? In a pre-interview, you said, yeah, there are people who are selling gold. Why are they selling their gold? And you said, hey, the economy's not doing so good globally.
Well, because, Greg...
Could you explain that?
Yeah. I mean, there are people with very substantial means around the world who have acquired immense wealth and have it invested pretty much in the fiat world. And a lot of these people who might be running very large enterprises they also have debt. They have debt denominated in fiat money, and the deepest, most liquid debt markets historically have been the U.S. dollar market. So a lot of people have borrowed in U.S. dollars. And as a result, so let's just say like an Asian company who might have borrowed because money was very available in U.S. dollars, they might have borrowed substantial amount of U.S. dollars, but they generate their income mostly in a local currency in Asia. And with the artificial propping up of the U.S. bond market, making the dollar look strong and appear strong in the financial markets, what happens is these foreigners who have their income in their domestic currency, but they have their debt in American currency, they have to continue paying interest on their U.S. debt. And these are the kind of people that might also own quietly own substantial amounts of physical metal, and maybe undeclared too. And when these people need dollars to service their U.S. dollar debt, they basically can be forced into untenable position of having to sell things that they didn't want to sell, like their metal, on probably very unfavorable terms. And this is what makes tranches of metal available from time to time for acquisition around the world. I mean, it's a really insidious game that goes on, Greg, but it does occur, and but the number of people and the amount of physical metal that's available around the world is decreasing and diminishing at a dramatic pace, almost on a daily basis, because there are too many dollars in the world looking for it, Greg.
They just took, it was reported they just took 50 tons of gold out of Syria, the U.S. military.
Sure.
I mean, so 50 tons. I mean, wow. So,
if America really did take 50 tons from Syria, Greg, they'll sell it probably. That'll give them the ability somehow in the paper markets to sell another. If they stole or took 50 tons, they'll sell 500 or 1,000 tons in paper form to try and push the price down. But ultimately, at some point, Greg, these paper markets like the COMEX and the LBMA, they are going to be abandoned by the world as the frauds that they are, and as nothing more than tools for manipulation, which is what they've morphed into and what they have become.
Are we getting to a moment where people are going to start trying to collect their gold? I mean, with this Basel III requirement, I mean, that's an awful big, all of a sudden you have an assets that's valued 50%. Now it's 100% on April 1st. Are we going to get to a time where, what you had predicted in the past, non-delivery event, that it'll all end when people stop getting their gold, that they can no longer get their gold? Are we approaching that kind of an event? Where's my gold? You don't have it? What?
I believe that's right around the corner now, Greg. I think we're closer to it than most people believe or understand.
Go ahead.
No, I mean, if you own gold and you don't have it, if you own gold, Greg, and you can't go and physically touch it, you don't really own gold.
And you were saying, too, that one of the things you were scared about, you said this in the pre-interview, is that, here's the problem. The problem is this is massive crime, as you've outlined. People are going to hang people over this. I mean, people are going to go to trials over this because they wrecked the world. And you're saying, well, if they don't have anything to lose, you're worried about war, the war card. Will you explain what your thought is on that?
In my view, Greg, there's nothing more dangerous to humanity than a fellow human being who feels they have absolutely nothing to lose. Because if a person who has been in a position of authority, who has committed these crimes against humanity, and feels that whatever the outcome is, like, they're going to hang and they're dead, like, how much more inclined would they be to push the nuclear button, thinking, like, I'm dead anyway? It doesn't really matter. I can push the nuclear button and maybe I have a better outcome. This scares the living bejeepers out of me, Greg. And you know, anybody who's thinking the right way, I think it should scare them too.
Price of gold, you think, I don't know, I'm trying to nail you down on an exact price, but how high, I mean, we've got, I mean, I don't know, just, if you just look at our budgets, 22, just in America, and you can amplify the debt in China, they've got trillions and trillions of dollars of debt, and you can amplify that in Europe, and they've got trillions of dollars in debt, and we've got 22 trillion we admit to, and another 21 at least that we didn't, is 43 trillion. I mean, where does the price of gold go against that backdrop? Because people have said in the past, Jim Sinclair once said it was $50,000. Now he says it may be low. Where does the price go with this kind of tens of trillions, hundreds of trillions, the derivative market, the wackadoodle nature of the debt that we face, that we actually face, scientifically verifiable debt that we face? Where does the price of gold go?
I mean, it could go to in nominal terms, Greg, it could go to a completely and utterly ridiculous number. But by historical norms, Greg, there's some cliche fables that exist that back in Roman times, an ounce of gold would buy you a good suit, a pair of shoes, and a belt or a sash. And back in Roman times, a very solid middle-class income, upper middle-class income, Greg, was 20 ounces of gold a year. And so, I mean, like, what's 20 ounces of gold worth today? 20 ounces of gold worth today is worth about 20 grand. And that's not really a very good upper middle-class income today. So, I mean, the price of gold, it depends on the degree and the extent to which we have this coming hyperinflation and monetary meltdown, which I'm convinced is coming. So if things get really off the rails, Greg, we could see nominal prices that would make a lot of people's nose bleed. So, I mean, where we go, good question. And it also depends. Governments could also step in and try to put regulations on prices or dictate price. So all I can say safely, the price is going up. I believe it's going up dramatically, and trying to put brackets on dramatically up in my world, or in my belief, it's a bit of a fool's errand to even try.
And you think this is all coming about soon? Will we have another crash and then they'll go crazy? That's what some people are saying. Michael Pentio says we're going to have another crash and then they're going to turn on the monetary spigots. Everything that's valued paper in paper terms, be it the equities, be it the bonds. I think these assets are in for a very, very rude awakening. And for very, very substantial price resets in nominal terms. So I wouldn't want to be overly long the equity markets, and I wouldn't want to have my portfolio full of government bonds right now either. Your subscribers, you were out of the loop, and you want to talk to your subscribers a little bit? Everybody's really happy for you, incidentally. Well, okay. You know what? I nearly died 5 weeks ago. And by the grace of God, I'm still alive, and I'm getting back on my feet. And my notice to my subscribers that this interview has been recorded will be probably my first communication with them in quite a long time, and I expect to be sending that out to them late Saturday night, Greg. Your sources around the world are they? Would you say they're freaking out right now? Are they signaling the same things you are? This is shaking out. This is going to shake out soon. Greg, they don't freak out about anything. They just develop a more steely resolve. Like the people that I work with, the people I know, they're very aware of what's going on the ground, and they've been forecasting and been believing, the program that I've just outlined. They have, like, they're like-minded. They've been of the belief that this is an eventuality,
and would come to fruition for a very long time. It's just that it's taken a lot longer than a lot of people believed it could ever take for it to the pieces to actually snap into place, for it to actually occur. And believe me, the revelations of Dr. Mark Skidmore and Katharine Fitz regarding the missing 21 trillion, this has been a big major piece of the puzzle that's been clicked into place that will allow and will precipitate much of what's coming in the very near future. And you know what? And the people in control of the U.S. dollar hegemon, they're very aware that this is coming too, which is why they're muscling up and talking more about gun control and putting in place more pieces to basically implement a police state in America, because they're very aware of what's coming also, because they know what they've done.
Rob Kirby, KirbyAnalytics.com. I'll put the links up. You also have your subscription service, which you'll be writing in earnest. You'll be getting into here now after this. It's $145 a year. Is that what it is? Am I right?
Yep.
And then you have email correspondence with your clients. You actually talk to them. You actually perform customer service. Yay. So I'll put the link up to your subscription page. You have some free stuff on KirbyAnalytics.com. Rob Kirby, we love you, man. We've been praying for you, man. You've been missed, and we're happy you're re-engaging in the battle. Thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Pleasure being with you, Greg, and thank you very much.